Okay, so for this next video, this last video, what we did was we found our critical numbers to be 4 and 1, and then we went and found our critical points. So our first critical point was x equals 1, y equals 11 over 6 right here. And our second critical point was x equals 4, y equals negative 8 over 3 right here. So the next thing we're going to do, once we get our critical numbers, we can use the first derivative test, which means that we're going to make a sign chart. We're going to put the first derivative on top and then f on bottom. And we're going to go through and we're going to put where our critical numbers were on the number line. So here we had f prime was 0 whenever x was 1. And whenever x was 4, that was our other critical number, f prime was 0. Okay, so now what we're going to do, what we want to know is when is the derivative negative and when is it positive? That tells us if our slope is going to be positive and when it's going to be negative, which means we can determine when f is increasing and decreasing. So then that's what we're going to be concerned with here. We're going to go through and we're just going to find which intervals it's positive, the derivative is positive, and which intervals the derivative is negative. So remember, for the first derivative tells us about our relative max and min. The first derivative also tells us about increasing and decreasing. So we're going to keep working in this column right here. So I'm going to grab a point from this interval. So anything to the left of 1, and I'm going to choose x equals 0 because that is left to the left of 1. And then I'm also going to choose something from the interval over here. So I'm just going to go to each interval. So in this interval, I'm going to choose something between 1 and 4. So I'll just go ahead and choose 2. And then in this last interval, I'm going to choose something to the right of 4, any number to the right of 4, and so I'm going to choose 5. And remember, we're not plugging in 1 and 4 because we already know that will give us a first derivative equal to 0. We want to test the left to the right and in the middle. So you can pick any point in these. It will be the same no matter what point you choose as long as you're in the correct interval. So let's start with our x equals 0 that we chose. So I'm going to plug that into the first derivative. And so I have 0 minus 4 times 0 minus 1. And I'm only concerned about the sign here because I don't care what the number is. I just want to know if it's positive or negative. So here I'm going to get a negative for 0 minus 4, and 0 minus 1 will also give me a negative. So a negative times a negative will give me a positive. So I'm going to record that I have a positive value here. And so for the next interval, I'm going to use x equals 2. So let me plug in a 2. Okay, so 2 minus 4 is going to give me a negative number, and 2 minus 1 is going to give me a positive. So this is going to give me a negative. And the last thing I do is I plug in my x equals 5. So let's go through the first derivative and put in 5. And that will give me a positive times a positive, which is a positive. So I'll have a positive here. So what do these numbers mean? So if my derivative is positive, it means that my slope is positive, which means I'm going to be going uphill, right? Remember, the first derivative is going to be the slope of f. So, in this interval, it is going uphill. So now I have the derivative is negative, which means I'm going to be going downhill. I have a negative slope. And the last interval is positive, so I know I'm going to be going uphill. So this is telling me about, so I know that I am, my function is going to be increasing on the interval, so where it's going uphill. So it starts going uphill anywhere to the left of 1, so it starts at negative infinity. And it stops increasing at this point right here at 1. This color's in pink. So it's going to go from negative infinity up to 1. And then it decreases from 1 to 4. And then it starts increasing again at this 4 right here. So it starts increasing again at 4, and then it goes on increasing until infinity. And we can also talk about when it's decreasing. So it is going to be decreasing only on this one little interval. It starts at 1 and it stops decreasing at 4. It's just on this blue interval right here is where it's decreasing. Okay, and then we can also look at it and determine where we have our relative max and where we have our relative min. You can see here if you're going at this x equals 1 point, if you're going uphill and then you switch to downhill, you have a mountaintop, which means that we're going to have a relative max at x equals 1, which was the point 1 comma 11 over 6. We already found that y value, so we can just use it there. And where is our relative min going to be? If you look at x equals 4, you can see it's going downhill and then it's going to swap to going uphill, and that looks like a relative min. It's a valley right there. So our relative min is going to be at x equals 4, which was the point 4 comma negative 8 over 3. So that tells us that first derivative, that's the first derivative test that we just did, and that's going to tell us about where it's increasing, decreasing, where it's max and min. So next video, we'll talk about what the second derivative can give us.